Strange Brew Podcast, Season 1, Episode 325. Promises made, promises delivered. Second podcast in 2 days. I don't know how long this one is going to go. In the past, when we've reviewed baseball stadiums or trips, we've always kind of rolled that into whatever podcast we were on. But it felt like the New York City trip. My wife and I took our moms to New York City, Christmas in New York City. And it just kind of felt like it needed its own podcast. So I don't know how long this is going to be. It could be 20 minutes. It could be 40 minutes. It could be an hour and 40 minutes. I really don't know. But we're going to break it down. The trip to New York City. The only thing we talked about on yesterday's podcast was the kettle of fish experience in the West Village, that Packer bar. But we're going to break down the entire thing, from the Costco planning of it to the vibe of the city, all the great food that we ate. Our trip to New York City.
This stuff's made in New York City? New York City? Get a rope.
Let's go.
On the ground, a chance here. Durham to Hardy to first. In time! Yes! The Brewers win! Yes!
Here comes Melvin to the 25, to the 20, Gordon 15, 10, 5, touchdown! Wisconsin! Record-breaking run!
Morgan, a smash up the middle, base hit to center. Here comes Gomez around third. A throw and the Brewers win!
Here's the snap. He looks, he throws, it's complete intercepted. And there is your Super Bowl dagger.
Booker the drive, gets inside, leads in, knocked away and stolen by Holiday. Phoenix has to foul, and a pinnacle ball throws it down. Swinging fly ball in the right center. Broxton is there, and they're the champions. They have done it. It's been a 50-year journey. Wisconsin, we've got a room at the top of the world tonight. The Milwaukee Bucks are NBA champions.
All right, welcome in Wednesday morning for episode 325. Snow is flying again here. Another 4 to 5 inches, I think, in the Sheboygan County area. We are just getting beat over the head with all of this winter weather. It's been crazy. Not even winter yet. It's 11 days away from winter. But yeah, more snow coming down, heavy wet stuff. Going to have to get the snowblower fired up again later today. It just feels like this is January weather and we're barely into the middle part of December. But waking up to a lot of that here this morning. Wanted to get this podcast up, as we talked about yesterday. Kind of felt right to separate the two podcasts, the New York Review podcast, and then all the Packer Bear stuff and the Giannis stuff. More rumors about that today, where now it sounds like there's been a team meeting between Giannis and the players on the team to talk about focusing in, locking in on what's going on right now. And I'm here right now, so let's just try to win some games. They are on the floor tomorrow night. But we did all that stuff yesterday, sports stuff, travel stuff today. And then we'll get back into our usual Friday podcast coming up on Friday. That's when Friday podcasts happen, John. It's after Thursday, before Saturday, most of the time, 99% of the time. So we'll do that on Friday. Without further ado, though, let's hop into the New York City review. But first, I want to play you a special travel log intro.
Well, she sneaks around the world from India to Carolina. She's a sticky-fingered filcher from Berlin down to Belize. She'll take you for a ride on a slow boat to China. Tell me, where in the world is
John? Huh? Not too bad. Barely noticeable. Barely. You admit it. You barely noticed the alteration we made to that mid-90s Carmen Sandiego classic. Well, where are we this time around? We are in New York City. And I have to say, as Jameis Winston told us heading into Packer Giant weekend, it truly was an enjoyable experience, the greatest city in the world.
Do it in the greatest city in the world.
I was singing
I'm going to be singing it with my son. It's the greatest city in the world. Yeah, that's a Hamilton reference if y'all don't know.
I'm very sad that Jackson Dart is back for the Giants, and we don't get any more Jameis clips.
10-year reunion.
It really was an enjoyable time. So first, before we talk about New York City, I do want to let you know about the Costco part of this, because I think that intrigued a lot of our B93 listeners when I said before I left on Tuesday or Wednesday last week that we booked this whole thing through Costco. So as I said, I think when we left, we have used the Costco travel website for certain things. 9 times out of 10, it's to rent a car. If we're going to spring training, we went to Atlanta a few years ago for a couple concerts. Normally, we'll use it to rent a car because you do get a little cheaper rate on car rental on the Costco website. Well, we started thinking about this trip, I think, around Mother's Day. We presented this as kind of a Mother's Day present for our moms, Peggy and Pam. Shout out, both middle names Jean. They learned that about each other this weekend. Both have the same middle name. And we were planning on doing this kind of special Christmas trip, Christmas in New York. Now, my mom has been a lot of places. My sister, Courtney, is literally Carmen Sandiego. She travels all around the world. I think they're going to Norway next summer. But Pam, my mother-in-law, has not done a ton of traveling in her life, so we thought this would be a fun experience for them. So we were trying to put this thing together like we normally do and piecemeal it on Priceline and find a flight on Southwest, and it just got agitating trying to put everything together like that. So I went to the Costco travel website and just said, or I think we both did, and we just sort of said, let's just see what the rest of this website has to deliver for us, in addition to just a rental car, which we didn't even need this time around. And they have a bunch of kind of pre-made packages that aren't date-specific. You know, sometimes you'll buy a pre-vacation package, and it's these specific dates. We're going to Cancun on these 7 days, and if you're in, you're in. If you're not, you're out. They have a lot of stuff on that website where they must just contract out with certain hotels in cities and certain airlines where you can kind of plug in the parameters, the days you want to go, and then they have their go-tos in those areas. So the first thing I want to tell you, and I know that's the first question we're going to get from a lot of the B93 text line, is how much did you save? How much did you save on this trip? And my answer to that question is I have no earthly idea. I assume, I hope that we did save some money, but I'd have to go through it. I'd have to book the hotel we stayed at. I'd have to book a car service. I'd have to book the flight through Delta and do that all individually and tally it up and see if there's a 5% discount or a 10% discount doing it on Costco. I know that will be a question people have, and my answer is simply I have no idea. The reason that we started looking at this is because of one word, and that is convenience. And it was convenient. You plugged in the days. We went Thursday through Monday. It found 2 or 3 hotels that they must contract out in New York City. Costco has a car service, which we'll talk about in a second, that picks you up at the airport. I'm not driving into the airport. We're going to make a lot of Seinfeld references on this podcast, by the way, even more than normal. Not driving anybody to the airport. They have a car that picks you up at the airport. They have a car that takes you back to the airport. And then it looks like a lot of their flights are contracted with Delta, which I think is a great airline. It's up there for me. We've flown United. We've flown Southwest a ton. We flew Frontier once. You want to take a bag? Ha! You want to take stuff with you on this trip? Ha! Enjoy that low rate, though. We have flown on a lot of different airlines, and I find Delta to be the smoothest operation, and really this whole package was smooth. Now, we talked about on Wednesday, I was really hoping when the car service picked us up that I was going to get one of the signature Costco hot dogs, or at least some of the hors d'oeuvres, some of the samples they have on like a Sunday at Costco. I thought that would be a nice deal. That turned out not to be the case. But the way that you can type in the dates you're going, and then it kind of fills in the rest, that's the smoothest experience I've had planning any kind of trip on a website, on the Costco travel website. And it was absolutely perfect. I'm not saying it ends up this way with every vacation. We could maybe book another vacation through Costco travel, and it will not be as smooth as it was. But I'm telling you, the plane from Mitchell, direct flight from Mitchell, which as we went over on Wednesday, I always look for that first because of how calm Mitchell International Airport is. Direct flight from Mitchell to LaGuardia, which of the 2 in New York City, that and JFK, and there's one other one too, Newark, right? But they are the quieter. Now, that's relative in New York, but Mitchell's a very quiet airport. And LaGuardia, for the most part, is a very quiet airport. And everything was super smooth. Everything left on time. Everything landed on time. We even landed a little early, I think, both going to New York and coming home from New York. We had no stumbling blocks there. We had no stumbling blocks with the car service. You call them 24 hours ahead of time. You let them know your flight number. You let them know around when you're going to get picked up. If there's any issues, you have a number to call. They pick up an actual person, not putting you through, press 1 for this or press 4 for this, and I'm screaming, agent, 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 over and over again like I'm Jim Ross. And it was perfect. They have a person there, O'Brien. You don't look like an O'Brien. They have a person there with a sign with your name on it. They get a gigantic, beautiful car, big Lincoln SUV or Suburbans that they have. Picked us up on time, navigated the way through traffic, got us to our hotel, perfect amount of time to get there on Thursday, back to pick us up 4:30 in the morning, right there. I think they said 4:37. It was a hyper-specific time to leave on Monday morning. They were there at 4:37. So I loved how easy it was to book on their website, and I especially loved how there were no potholes on this entire thing. Everything on time. Everybody was where they said they would be. And it just made it really easy because we had a lot of stuff going on. We were going to a lot of places. We were trying to find a lot of restaurants. That was the element of it that I didn't want to spend too much brain power on. I only have so much brain power before I'm left to the slash. Ding. Hit a dinger every time we do a Seinfeld reference. You know, when I was thinking about this trip, I thought about putting this in too. I love the episode of Seinfeld where George becomes a tourist in New York City. Because I forget, he watches somebody's suitcase, right? Then he ends up wearing that person's clothes, and the woman he meets thinks he's on vacation, but he's not.
You know, if you take everything I've accomplished in my entire life and condense it down into one day, it looks decent.
It looks pretty good. I can't. So I just loved how easy everything was and how smooth everything operated. There were no hurdles to jump over. There were no things to stumble over. And again, this is our first full trip with Costco. Maybe it's not that way when you continue to do it, but I will be back. Given how this one went, we will be using that website again. But I know the big question is, how much money did you save? I have no idea how much money we saved. We maybe spent more. I have no clue. But it was worth it for how easy that part of it was. The hotel, by the way, we stayed at a 4-star hotel. It is in Midtown. And it's right across the street from the Empire State Building. It's called the Martinique Hotel. Couldn't recommend that more. We had a fabulous location. The staff there was incredible, very helpful. And anytime you walk through the revolving doors, by the way, in New York City. Big in New York City. I haven't been through a revolving door, I think, in 20 years. Every door. And I guess that makes sense. So many people in, so many people out. You want to keep things warm in winter and cool in summer. You don't want everybody hanging the door open. But their staff was tremendous. Got us checked in right away. We were actually there a little early, and you always worry about that. Are we going to have to wait to get our room? Didn't have any problem there at all. And the Martinique Hotel, I think it shut down for a while post-pandemic, reopened in 2021. There's a lot of history there. My wife, just because she took the stairs one time to get down from the 4th floor, noticed on the 3rd floor of the Martinique, as she was going down the stairs, that there is a giant PGA logo on the 3rd floor. And she thought, And my father-in-law, her dad, Jarrett, loves golf, so she kind of checked that out to let him know what was going on there. And she discovered that this was the hotel where the PGA was founded. And there's like kind of a mini, I guess I'd describe it as a PGA Hall of Fame, like 2 different hallways with plaques and stories and pictures of the notes or the news and minutes of the day when they founded it in 1916. So yeah, we found out that little piece of history too from the Martinique. The Martinique's been around for a long time. It's been owned by several different companies. I think it's owned by Hilton now. But that was kind of a cool little aspect. She walked me through there the next day. They've got a bunch of plaques and pictures and old golf clubs like Bobby Jones golf clubs and things like that, and the first pictures of the Ryder Cup. But there's a lot of PGA history just randomly. I could not find out, and I Googled it. Why don't you Google it? I did. Try to find out why that hotel was the hotel. I think it just so happened that somebody on their board or their future board of directors and the people that were coming together to form the PGA just happened to be staying at that hotel. They said, why don't you just come to our hotel? I don't think there was any real thought behind it beyond that, but there is an interesting bit of PGA history at that hotel. So that all worked out perfectly. 10 out of 10 on my first full-on Costco travel experience. I don't know how many different variations they have, if they go international, if they have trips to Ireland, or, trips to England or London or whatever. If they do full-on trips like that, if it's as flexible, I'm not sure. But we'll be diving into that more because I thought we had a really good experience with Costco travel. Now, New York City, just in a broad sense, before I kind of give you the blow-by-blow of the days and the food we ate, it was such a good time. I do sometimes think of Liz Lemon.
I mean, come on, this is the capital of the world, the culture, the diversity.
You all right?
He spit in my mouth.
So I think that's some of the preconceived notions folks have maybe about New York City. It's grimy. It's rude. There are people all over the street. Sometimes you get mugged. Yeah, but the key is to get mugged on the first day. That's what I found out on Thursday. You get mugged on the first day. It's like an initiation ritual. You get mugged on the first day. Then you've got nothing else for anybody else to take. You don't even have to worry about it. If you take my wallet on day 1, I don't have to worry about it on day 2, 3, and 4. But I will admit, with our moms and some of the inexperience in a big city like that, and not that we're well-versed, it was my 3rd time in New York City, first time there in winter, but there are going to be a lot of people. There are going to be big-time crowds. Some are going to be polite. Some are not going to be polite. And we all see. You scroll through Twitter, you scroll through any social media, and what are you going to see? You're going to see the worst elements of every city. But I do think there were some people on the text line that when I said I was taking my mom or we were taking our moms to New York City, based on some of the videos I'm sure we see and if you watch the news and all that kind of stuff, I think there were people on the text line that thought, well, John's gone. That guy's gone. It was a nice run. It was a good run on the B93 Morning Show with John Etzler, but there's no way that guy's making it back from New York City. I think there was some of that thought on the text line. And I was a little concerned before we left just because, you want to make sure everybody's safe and has a good time, and we're taking our moms out there. So I had a little bit of that in the back of my brain. But we got there on Thursday. We checked into the hotel. We immediately walked to Rockefeller Center, and I had my head on a swivel on that first walk, just kind of taking it all in, making sure I knew where we were and the kind of folks that were around us. And within an hour, I would say, once we got to Rockefeller Center, once we saw the tree and all the Christmas vibe and how pleasant everybody was down there, I would say any concerns I had were gone within an hour or two of being in the city. It truly was a great experience. Now, the one thing about New York City that you have to adjust to if you are a Midwesterner especially, and we are Midwest polite in Wisconsin and Minnesota, not Illinois so much, but we are used to, right, if you're going to run into somebody or you're at the grocery store trying to get around somebody, it's ope culture. Let me squeeze by you right here. No, you're good. We do a lot of that stuff in the Midwest. That does not happen in New York City. And a lot of the folks in New York are tourists, too, from all of the parts of the globe and the country. And some of them are native. They live in New York. They're in the heart of it. They're in the heart of the city. You just don't have that kind of culture. And I don't even think it's mean-spirited. I think sometimes with our Midwest brain, if somebody runs into you and doesn't say they're sorry, or you brush shoulders with somebody, or you're trying to get around and you run into someone or you make them stop, immediately our instinct is to apologize and say, sorry about that. That just doesn't exist in New York City, but I don't think it's mean-spirited. I just think that's the way you have to live there. If you live there, if you're in the concrete jungle, if you're there, and there's so many people and they're all going in different directions and people are paying various amounts of attention, you're going to run into people. You're going to bang shoulders with people. You're going to cut people off. And you're not going to say you're sorry or excuse me every single time. I just think it's a different mindset. I don't think it's mean-spirited at all. But you do have to get used to that if you are from a smaller town or if you are from a Midwest state. That's just not how it works. You have to accept, and I did after day one, I'm going to run into people. You're going to bang shoulders with people. It's not that they're challenging you. It's not that they're being rude to you. It's just that there's millions of people, and it's very difficult to navigate with those Midwest sensibilities. But it was very early on in our time there that I felt very comfortable. We ended up taking the subway. We never Ubered. We took the subway pretty much everywhere that we couldn't walk. And again, our hotel was in a good spot. It's not that big of an island. Manhattan's not that big. Everything's pretty much everything you want to go to from where we were was pretty much 20, 25, maybe 30 minutes in terms of walking at the most. And then on day two, we got into the subway, which again, we've all seen subway videos of some folks on the subway kind of acting out. And I was a little worried about that. But on our first subway ride, totally calm. There was one situation where we were on a packed subway and somebody was trying to get on. They couldn't quite get on and they felt like there was more space. Everybody moved down and then there was a little chirping back and forth. There's no space. Oh, there is space. This train's not going to leave. I'm going to stand in the doorway until somebody moves. And then there was a little chirping back and forth. But that was the only thing we encountered on the subway. That was not a bad situation either. And we ended up taking the subway pretty much everywhere by the time we got to day 2 or 3. So yeah, you have sometimes that preconceived idea, if you've never been or it's been a while, I haven't been there since 2008, that you could be entering into Mad Max like it's George. There's no laws in this place. It's Thunderdome. But it really was a pleasant experience, and the spirit of the holiday. I can't tell you how many times we talked to people or ran into people that were just saying, Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday. I mean, everybody was pretty much in a jovial, Happy Holidays, Merry Christmas kind of mood. So overall, if you are somebody who would be concerned about going to New York City, you don't like going to Chicago, you don't like going to bigger cities like that, there's a lot of people, so you have to get used to that. There's no way around that. But the subway, I felt safe the entire time. Walking around, I felt safe the entire time. I never felt like I was going to get jumped or mugged or, the things that go through people's brains. We had a fantastic time in the greatest city in the world. So the first thing we did do was go to Rockefeller Center, walk there, and we saw the tree. And I have to say, I am not somebody who gets maybe overly emotional about decorations or the Christmas season. I mean, I love Christmas, but seeing that tree, it was like a Christmas Vacation scene where they finally turn on the lights. Is your house on fire, Clark? She goes back outside. that kind of a moment, seeing that tree. And I had those eyes, those Clark Griswold eyes. See your house from space. It really did take your breath away, I have to admit. I don't know, actually, I never looked up the stats on how tall it was. I do think there were more people specifically on that day. Now, talking to our driver on the way to the hotel, he basically said, yeah, it's going to be this way. We were driving through a ton of traffic at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a, Thursday. He said, yeah, with the Christmas season now and the Christmas market's open and the tree lighting was on Wednesday. We got there on Thursday. He pretty much said it's going to be this way now for the duration all the way through New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. It will not calm down. And calming down is a relative term as it relates to New York City. But it won't really calm down until after the weekend after New Year's Day, which I think is on a Friday this year. So like January 4th, things will finally take a beat. And there were a lot of people there, but we walked down there. We walked past Saks on Fifth Avenue. If you are somebody who loves old school Christmas nostalgia and pressing your nose up against a Christmas display, I even remember as a kid. Now, I'm not like, sometimes I talk like I was a kid who was raised on war bonds, but Lucky Strike cigarettes. But I was a kid of the 80s and 90s. But even I remember in the 90s, if you're a Sheboygan listener, I remember going to a department store around this time of year, Prangies in Sheboygan, great bakery. And they would have a Christmas display up, and you'd ride the elevator to the top floor, and it was a winter wonderland that you walked through with Bruce the Spruce, who scared everybody, and you would get to sit on Santa's lap. And it kind of had that old school 50s, 60s department store at Christmas time, It's a Wonderful Life feel to it. Yeah, Bruce the Spruce. Remember that? That's a character that exists in a lot of people's pasts, I think. That's not just a Sheboygan thing. And Bruce the Spruce is one of those characters. If you know, you know. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. The eyes moved with you. That's what freaked me out about Bruce the Spruce. The eyes would move with you every direction you went. They actually do at the Sheboygan County Museum. Now, for the last, I think, 10 plus years, they do a heritage exhibit of all the old Christmas department store stuff. And they have Bruce the Spruce, the original in Sheboygan, Bruce the Spruce, who has his own Facebook page now, too. Scared the bejesus out of me as a kid. But if you love that, I mean, if you love old school Christmas stuff, or if you're somebody who says, man, Christmas isn't like it used to be, you know, it's too much commercialism and all that kind of stuff. It's not the old school, the department store and Santa and that whole vibe. I would recommend going to New York City because it does have that old, what feels like from what I've seen in movies, that old 40s, 50s, 60s New York vibe. All of the major department stores not only have a light show like Saks on Fifth Avenue had this incredible light show that was set to Christmas music that people were out taking videos of, but they have Christmas displays. Every window on every city block basically has a Christmas display, movable display. The Macy's store had a great display, no gimbals. The FAO Schwartz store had a bunch of fun Christmas displays or exhibits in their windows. So it does have that old school feel. But I will say that tree moved me a little bit, and I did not expect that. When we got there, didn't get teary-eyed. What's this? Salty discharge. Ding. But I did. It was emotional to see the tree. It's just so gigantic, and it is as bright as the sun, basically. It's just amazing how many lights are on there, how bright it is. It does. It takes your breath away. I don't know how long it takes them. It's an actual tree, so they've got to track down. I think it's a spruce, maybe. I think it is. It's Bruce the Spruce. But it's probably 30 feet tall. I don't know. Let's see if we can Google it in real time here. Rockefeller tree height. And to get all those lights on there, I was way wrong. My ability to assess height, not good. Yeah, 35 feet, try 75 feet. It is a 75-foot tall Norway spruce from East Greenbush, New York, weighing 11 tons. So they bring that in there, but then to get all those lights on there, and I assume there is some kind of different power subsystem grid they're using to make sure, because it's lit the entire time. It never goes out. But if you spend all that time putting all those lights on there, what if a string goes out? We checked all the bulbs, didn't we? So it was spectacular seeing the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree. And yeah, they just lit it Wednesday. They had the whole TV special. Reba was hosting the TV special Wednesday night. We were there on Thursday checking that thing out. So that's the first thing we saw. We walked past Saks Fifth Avenue and did that. And then the first restaurant we went to was an Italian restaurant called La Pecora Bianca. There are 2 locations, I think, in New York, which is a theme. I mean, some of their best restaurants, there are locations kind of all over Manhattan and Midtown and the southern part. I mean, there are a lot of locations. But La Pecora Bianca was the first one we went to. We thought an easy way to kind of get a nice Italian meal. There's not no frills, but you know what the menu's going to be. There's going to be pasta. There's going to be vodka sauce and spaghetti sauce, obviously higher end, but meatballs and chicken. So my mom and I had the chicken parm with homemade pasta.
Chicken parm, you taste so good.
Did it ever. Some of the best chicken I think I have ever had. We all had cocktails, and my mother-in-law, Pam, and my mom had a couple glasses of wine. I mean, it was just a perfect way to start the trip. We only wanted to do one thing on day one, because, travel days, you're always exhausted, and you're kind of at the end of your rope, and people are getting hangry. You don't want to pile things on a travel day. So that's all we did. We traveled, we flew, we checked into the hotel, we saw the tree, we stopped at the Saks store to see their light display and their video display, and then we went to La Pecora Bianca, which was not far from our hotel, walkable to our hotel, had an excellent meal there. Yeah, homemade pasta. We had, what did we have for the appetizer there? It's hard to remember everything that we had there. I think zucchini fries, fried zucchini fries. Those were amazing. And yeah, both my mom and I got the chicken parm. I think my wife got a pasta dish and my mother-in-law got a pasta dish. Just a great meal to get things started. All of the wait staff that we ran into in New York City, just above and beyond. They were almost a show unto themselves. And I think that's a part of New York City culture. I think they view themselves, and they're correct based on what I experienced, they view themselves as one of the food capitals in the United States. Everybody has an elite meal. Everybody has an elite experience. Every waiter or waitress we had at every restaurant we had, 1,000% attentive, funny, engaging, asking questions, but not too much. And it was just a really good experience right out of the gate, and we had a great time there. La Pecora Bianca. If you're there, I would recommend checking it out. As a side note, we did so much research on Reddit and different post boards about the best restaurants in New York City. You can go to 50 different websites that all claim to have the top 20 restaurants in New York City, and they're all different. Every website, all the restaurants are different. The only one, and we're going to talk about this in a second, the only place that I saw pop up on every single list of the best food in New York City that I found was Los Tacos #1. That was the only place that kind of went on every single list. But it was just wild when we were sitting down to look at some of the places to eat, some of the best places to eat. And you would go to all these websites, and every single list would have a different 20 where there was no crossover. How is that possible? So that's where we started. Then Friday morning, we did the Today Show. The moms wanted to go to the Today Show. I stupidly, on Wednesday, assumed that now that we're 30 years, right, or 35 years deep into the Today Show, having guests outside, that it would not be that busy. The novelty of that maybe would have worn off. So we walked over there, and it was cold. So Friday, remember Wednesday last week, we had single digits in southeastern Wisconsin. Well, that weather made it to New York by Friday morning when we were going to stand in line for the Today Show. Another side note, one other thing I learned about New York City in the winter is, yeah, it might be 30 or 40 degrees, but it never really gets that warm when you're in the city because the buildings are so damn tall. You never get direct sunlight. Like, there was a brief moment on Saturday, I want to say, where we got direct sunlight, and it was like, oh my God. We haven't had that because the buildings just block everything out. So we went to the Today Show. We got to the spot we had to be to get in line. And I looked at that line and thought, are you kidding me? How are this many people? Again, Christmas time and maybe people in town for the tree lighting on Wednesday, getting back to Rockefeller Center. Maybe that played a role. It was a long line, and we got there pretty early. They start putting people through security at 7 o'clock Eastern time. Remember the Eastern time? Remember the time zones? And we got there at 5:45, I think, or 6, and we were in a long line, and then it just got longer. So they filter you into the area where they introduce people that are visiting, and they put the anchors out there sometimes to chat with them, which we didn't stick around long enough to do. And there is a long security line, as you would expect with everything. You just have to know that if you're going on a trip to New York City, there's lines for everything. Everything costs money, and there's a line for everything. So just know that going in. If that's not something that you can handle, then maybe New York City is not a great spot for you. But that is one thing we learned quickly. Everything, Christmas time in New York, everything has a wait and everything will cost money. Now, it didn't cost us money, I guess, to go on the Today Show or to get into that area, but there was a long security line. They vet you thoroughly in everything you do at the Empire State. Every place, every spot will put you through security and put you through the different wands, or you have to take off your coat or dump your cell phone and your wallet into a bucket or whatever. So we went through security. Now, the night before, because I did mention on the Wednesday morning show that we were maybe going to do that. We all kind of thought at dinner, well, it'd be kind of cool if we make a Sheboygan's Country B93 sign and put some of the names of the different characters we have on the B93 morning show. So we did that. We went to a CVS, spent $8 on 2 pieces of poster board. I mean, everything is expensive. And my wife wrote on it. We made a couple signs. One that said Mom's First Trip to New York City. We didn't find that one on TV. But we did make a Sheboygan's Country B93 one. And then on the back, if you're a B93 listener, you know all these names. The Cheese Lady and Our Girl Jill and Farmer Peter and Twiggy with the Farm Report and Boss Man Wiener. That's a real character if you are not familiar with the morning show. So we did on one side, Sheboygan's Country B93 on today, or Sheboygan's Country on today. And then on the back, we had the B93 cast of characters, which I don't think quite made the TV show, the 2 seconds we were on in the background. But we did make those signs, and they vet the signs. So you know what I was worried about? One thing I was worried about, which I probably shouldn't have been, if we would have put B93 on it, I know the Today Show and NBC, national TV, are not overly concerned with B93 encroaching on their ratings, but you never know. They probably don't want other stations on that sign, so we left B93 off or wrote it very small. The one thing I was worried about when they go through the signs was Boss Man Wiener. I thought they may take the sign away because of Boss Man Wiener. I was really hoping to live in a world where somebody came outside, they bring out Al Roker or somebody, and they look at the signs, and then I have to explain to them who these people are. That would have been a magical moment. But they do vet the signs. They read all of them. They look at the front and the back, and they assess whether or not this is something they may potentially want to see on TV. So then we filter in. Now, we did almost cut bait because we were in line for an hour, and I'm telling you, it's single digits. It's dark outside. You're not moving around. We had foot warmers on. We had hand warmers cranked open, but it was getting really cold, and it took a long time to get through security. So we finally got there. And it was just mission, try to find any way to get one of these signs on TV and get the hell out of there because it was so cold. So my wife has more TV experience than I do, but we found the window where they're broadcasting with their backs to the outside crowd. And then if you know TV, you know when the red light is on, they're on live. When the teleprompter is moving, like Ron Burgundy, he'll read everything on that teleprompter. When the teleprompter is moving, they're probably on TV. So we waited for those cues, and we held the sign. And then one of our B93 listeners texted one of Lindsay's coworkers, and they saw us, me and Lindsay. And you kind of see my mom. Our moms are not very tall, okay? It was going to be hard to see them no matter what. But you do see us for literally 2.1 seconds over somebody's shoulder, and you see the Sheboygan's Country B93 sign. So mission accomplished there. And then as soon as we realized that was our best shot to be on TV, we got out of there because we were so cold. And then we went across the street to the Martha Stewart restaurant, breakfast place called Maman, I think is how you say it. Tremendous food there. Excellent coffee there with hints of butter toffee, I think is what the coffee bag said. And we were freezing, so just to find a place to sit and thaw out and get some food was great. I think my mom had a croque monsieur that was very good, as you would expect. I mean, Martha Stewart, it feels like it's not going to be rolling out just a bunch of pre-made crap that you heat up in a microwave. It was really good. The cookies were good. The muffins were good. The bride of breakfast burrito, that was very good. But yeah, that's, I guess, her restaurant franchise, Maman, the restaurant franchise that was built on insider trading. They actually have a great recipe for toilet wine based on her time in the clink. But that was not a bad spot, right across the street from where they broadcast the Today Show. There was a Starbucks there, too. But we went to Maman, and it was a great experience. And then we went to see the Rockettes. I am not an expert in dance by any stretch of the imagination, but my wife has a background in dancing. She grew up in dance classes, so she was very excited. I was very excited just to be inside Radio City Music Hall. The history there, the broadcast history in there. It is a huge venue. And the seats are big, and you get a ton of legroom, which is not always the case with older theaters. You think of going to the Pabst in Milwaukee, where we got married, going to a show there, going to Turner Hall, some of those older venues. Those seats were made for people that are much smaller, but I don't know if they've renovated it recently or what. Huge seats and a ton of legroom. So that's where we went next. We saw the Rockettes Christmas show. I did not realize it is the 100th year of the Rockettes. They had a really interesting kind of mini documentary before the show went on. And it was just Christmas on top of Christmas on top of Christmas. Santa Claus was kind of the MC of it. And they put on a tremendously entertaining performance. The leg kicks are the ones you think of, but they do a lot of great dance. And the lines are ultra crisp. And it just looks like they're one machine all kind of moving together. Really cool stuff. I think that was my wife's favorite show or entertainment tidbit that we saw. gets you in the Christmas spirit, but the Rockettes at Radio City Music Hall was really, really cool. We did that right away after the Today Show. And then we went to the Museum of Modern Art. This is art. Get it? Now, this was kind of my mom's place to be. I am not a great assessor of art. Neither is my wife and her mother-in-law. While we enjoy and appreciate some of the history we saw, that's not something that spoke to us, but a place to go and check out some great paintings. They had Starry Night, which my mom was just overwhelmed to see because of it's a once-in-a-lifetime. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. She said, I never thought I'd see it in person. She did. They had a Salvador Dali there. There's a ton of stuff. Like any museum, art museum, or even like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or any place like that, you could spend 3 days there, 10 hours a day, or you could spend a couple of hours there. We spent a couple of hours. We immediately went to Starry Night. Huge crowd there, as you would expect. But yeah, you saw a lot of cool stuff. I asked one of the attendants where the Bob Rosses were. They did not find that funny, so just mark that down if that's a joke you want to make. Did not find that entertaining. Where are your Rosses? Lead me to your Rosses. Didn't find that too funny. Oh, well, what are you going to do? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. But we went to the Museum of Modern Art. That was a place my mom had. When we asked our moms, where would you like to go? That was like number one on her list. So after the Rockettes, we went to the Museum of Modern Art. And then I think it was the next day, or did we go to Bryant Park that day too? I'm telling you, we did so much stuff in these days. I think we went to Bryant Park that day. We did the Today Show. We got breakfast at the Martha Stewart Place, the Rockettes, the Museum of Modern Art. Then we walked around Bryant Park. Bryant Park is probably the most famous of the Christmas markets. There are Christmas markets around Central Park, which we went to later. But that's the one. I mean, if you ask anybody that's been to Christmas in New York or any New Yorker, what's the Christmas market to go to, Bryant Park? The one thing is, there's just so many people there. It is just nuts to butts. You're rubbing elbows with everybody. There are little shops everywhere. There's little places to eat. There's places to get some cocktails and some beverages, but there's long, long lines. It was good to experience and walk through it. We assessed pretty quickly that the few indoor places that you could maybe sit down and not be freezing cold to eat something were going to be booked up on a Friday night. And we found relatively close a place called Park Avenue Tap. Park Ave and Madison Avenue, those are all kind of in the same area. We went to Park Avenue Tap. I would say it was higher-end bar food, but really, really good. Just got a simple soup and sandwich and some wraps and some salads. I'm not saying it was cheap. It was not cheap, but it was pretty good. And that's where we had a couple of drinks and wrapped up the day on Friday. Then Saturday morning, I looked up best bagel spot. No bagel. Nope. Ding. And the best bagel spot in Midtown is a place called S1E325. E-S-S-A bagel, S1E325 bagel. And there are several spots in New York City. There was one that was like 700 feet from us. And we went there, and it was a really good breakfast sandwich, quality bagel. They had like 8 different versions of it, tons of cream cheese. It had a very soup Nazi vibe to it with your ordering. They had a very particular way to do it, but if you just prep and don't freak out when you get up there, it's easy to handle. But we got sandwiches there, brought them back to the hotel. There was not a lot of seating room there. That I would recommend, though, if you're looking for a bagel. Everybody says the bagels and the pizza in New York City, because the water in New York City, the bagels are the best in New York City, but that was a quality bagel, H&H. So we got breakfast there. Then we went to Macy's and did the storefront there, and my mother-in-law took a lot of videos for our niece and nephew to watch, and I think she FaceTimed them, and they had their jaws just wide open looking at some of the huge moving animated Christmas displays at Macy's. Then we walked to Times Square. The last time we were in Times Square was 2008, and I think we took the subway from a quieter part of town, and you pop up on that subway stop right in the middle of that hellstorm in Times Square. And my wife at that time, we were dating, but she was very overwhelmed that time in 2008 to just be kind of sent into it. We knew what to expect more this time around. It's just so much. There's just so many gigantic video boards and street performers, and we did prep them because we didn't run into a lot of busking, I guess you would say, or people looking for money or street performers where we were, where our hotel was in Midtown. But we knew once you go to Times Square, that's where you're going to run into a lot of that. The Naked Cowboy's still doing it, everybody. How long has the Naked Cowboy been patrolling Midtown Manhattan? I think it's been like 25 years. And he still seems to be one of the biggest attractions there. He had a huge crowd around him. Heck, my God, he's still doing it. You ever think the Naked Cowboy gets up and looks in the mirror and says, I just don't want to do this today? It's like the comedian. Who's going to entertain me? Single tear. But Yeah, he's still doing it. They've got the giant cookie monsters and Elmos that try to force you to take pictures with them and then charge you. Then they want cash, 10, 15, 20 bucks or whatever it is. So we did prep our moms that as big as the crowds have already been, it's going to be even bigger in Times Square. And this is going to be a place where people are shoving flyers into your face. They're trying to get you to buy stuff. They're trying to get you to take pictures. Just say no. No eye contact. No. Practice it. But it was a fun experience to see them. Got a lot of cool pictures down in Times Square. We didn't spend a lot of time. It does kind of pop out of nowhere. It was only maybe a 10-minute walk from our hotel and had a totally different vibe to it. But Times Square is where we went to the taco place that I mentioned about 15 minutes ago. The one restaurant on every post board I went to that was like a crossover that everybody had on their top 20 list was Los Tacos number 1.
That said taco.
And it was about 2 blocks off of Times Square. I think there are a couple of locations, but this one was 2 blocks off of Times Square. Huge line coming out of it. And you could just tell right away by the look of it, this is authentic Mexican. This is authentic taco. This is not the white people tacos. Can you have any sour cream back there? Do you have shredded cheddar cheese back there? That was not going to be entertained at all. They had 4 versions. They had a beef, a pork, a chicken, and a cactus. So I figured we've got to try every one of them. And our moms decided to do a chicken taco, get a little adventurous. They have the ice-cold glass bottles of Coke. And yeah, a long line to get through it, but they know what they're doing. It's like a NASCAR pit crew. They turn those tacos out very quickly. And I got in line, and I was done in line in like 5 minutes. Had to track them down. And they were some of the best tacos I think I have ever had. And I had some really good tacos. I'm trying to remember where I was. Was it in Phoenix maybe for spring training a year or two ago? We had a great Mexican meal. I forget where the spot was, but this is up there. And this is a little different where it's not a sit-down restaurant. You get a margarita and you do the whole thing. But it's a snatch and grab. You get it. You go find somewhere to stand and hammer down 3 or 4 tacos and you're good. I think our favorite ultimately was the steak, not the beef, the steak taco. That was the number 1. Chicken a little spicier. And then I think pork was after that. And the cactus one is a little weird, kind of pickly. I've never eaten cactus before. I didn't know what to expect. I would almost say the texture and the taste of it was almost like an overcooked or an over-softened green pepper. But we tried all of them, and that was our power ranking. I was steak, chicken, pork, and then cactus. But that lived up to the billing. That was like the one place that I wanted to make sure we got to somehow because it was on every single list. Can't recommend that enough if you're in New York City trying to find one of the Los Tacos number 1 spots. Then we did Ground Zero. Not a lot to say there. Both our moms wanted to see it. I've been there one time before. It is as solemn as you would expect. They've got the 2 water displays for the South Tower and the North Tower. I think the South Tower, the water that whole area was being revitalized or cleaned. So that one wasn't on. The North Tower was. There's a mall adjacent to it now, and One World Trade Center is there. It is certainly worth seeing. It has that feel. I mean, it just has that gravity to it, and you feel that as soon as you get off the train stop. It is a very solemn and quiet place, as you would expect. We did do that. Then we did the Statue of Liberty. Now, we didn't do the full-on where we got off on Liberty Island, and we were on that island right up close to it. We did a boat tour that went around it. That was good enough. I will say this. I've been to New York twice before. This is the first time that I've gone to the Statue of Liberty. I think Ghostbusters 2 lied to us about the size of Lady Liberty because it doesn't look as big as you think it does. You think the Statue of Liberty is this huge beacon, this massive statue, and it's big, but it's not as big as you think. And remember in Ghostbusters 2, when they take control of the Statue of Liberty, the Statue of Liberty is walking through the bay up to her eyeballs, but walking through. I don't think there's any way that she could do that. So Ghostbusters 2 lied to us. That was cool to see Statue of Liberty. And then we did Libbity Bibbity. And then that night, Saturday night, I had one of the best meals that I have ever had. As I teased on yesterday's podcast, I would put this on the level of any of the best meals I've ever had in my life. And not to brag, but we've been to a lot of great spots in our lifetime, and my wife and I have been to some of the top restaurants. We've been to Olive Garden, had breadsticks at Olive Garden. I went to Applebee's in 1998, and let me tell you something. If you remember, if you were alive in that time, Applebee's in the late 90s, early 2000s, that was a vibe. That was actually pretty good food back then. I don't know what happened to it over the years, or maybe I just changed. I remember when Applebee's opened in Sheboygan, we thought, oh my God, we got an Applebee's. We're a real city, everybody. We're a real boy. We have an Applebee's. You'd go there and you'd get the fajitas, the sizzling fajitas walking past you, the cast iron skillet. Wow, what a moment. No, but we've been to some really good spots. I would say one of my favorite meals we've gone to in my lifetime, 3 or 4 years ago, my wife and I went to the Sanford in Milwaukee. That's a great spot. If this isn't number one, and like I said yesterday, I'm trying not to be recency bias guy. This was a shareable spot. It was a restaurant. It is a restaurant called Westlight in Brooklyn. And it is a hotel bar restaurant that's at the top of the hotel in Brooklyn, and it has unbelievable sight lines of downtown Manhattan, the New York skyline. It overlooks East River. What's that smell? Ding, East River. Were there other people out there? Oh, they were. Swimming? But the view is incredible, and that's what we were looking for. We wanted to get to a different borough of New York, and that got us to Brooklyn, and it is a totally different feel in Brooklyn. It kind of almost feels more like downtown Milwaukee. You're not walking around with the skyscrapers. It's a much more neighborhood feel to it. So we wanted that change of pace, but then we were looking at, before we left, what are the best restaurants to go to at a spot like that that can give you that view, that water view, and the view of the skyline across the entirety of Manhattan. And that one did. We made reservations like 2 months ago. I was a little concerned only because the menu was a little more complex and we weren't sure what everybody's palates were. And it ended up being one of the best times I think any of the four of us had. The food was, in a word, amazing. Our server, Sean, if you're ever in Westlight in Brooklyn, I would recommend waiter Sean, who put on a hell of a performance, entertained us, genuinely nice, said, this is what I love to do. I love entertaining you. And then maybe he said something about us under his breath later, or when he went back to the kitchen. These idiots from Wisconsin. But at face value, he just seemed like a guy who, he said he's a trained chef too. That could be a lie. I don't know. But he genuinely just seemed to love what he did. He loves being in the service industry, loves being a waiter, loves giving people that kind of an experience. And that showed. I mean, that showed all the way through. And it's a shareables menu, so we just got a bunch of stuff and shared it. Had a bunch of cocktails, too, and a couple glasses of wine. And I'm telling you, I think we started with roasted Brussels sprouts that were doused in pecorino cheese, underrated cheese. They had oil, just a little bit of a sprinkle of salt, and that pecorino cheese, just the best version of Brussels sprouts I think I have ever had. We got sea bass bao buns. Unbelievable.
What do we have?
Sea bass.
Yeah.
Right.
They are mutated sea bass.
Really? Are they ill-tempered?
Absolutely.
Well, that's a start.
Yeah. So we had sea bass bao buns. I mean, the buns as soft as you could ever want. The sea bass was cooked perfectly. We got a braised beef mole. Mole. You want to do another Austin Powers reference here? Hold on.
Mole.
Oh, shut up! Mole, 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 mole.
It was so good. The only criticism I would have of the mole is they came with corn tortillas, with small corn tortillas to put it in. But the juice was a little runny, and it's hard to keep that in the tortilla without dripping all over the place. I would almost have preferred some kind of, not mashed potato, but like a whipped parsnip or something like that to put it on top of. Even just like a bed of rice would have been fine. So it kind of soaks up some of that juice because we ate all the beef, obviously, and then you've got this pool of juice at the bottom of the cast iron serving utility. And I just wanted to drink it. It was so good. So we got that. We got salmon tostadas with some caviar topped on it. And we had a burger. They just a simple burger. But our buddy Sean, our waiter, said, this is the best burger I've ever had. So you cut it up 4 ways. It was one of the best burgers I think I've ever eaten in my life. Cooked to perfection. Soft bun, but kind of crispy on the outside, but just a soft, air-light bun. Everything was perfect on that. We ended up getting something else, too. I can't remember what else we got. And then we got the dessert, some kind of apple pie ice cream deal, and pecans, 2 small little pecan pies with a great crust on it and a little scoop of vanilla ice cream or vanilla gelato on the top of it. Just a phenomenal meal, top to bottom. I would put it as one of the best meals I've ever had in my life. If it's not 1, it's 2 or 3. Westlight in Brooklyn. Cannot recommend it enough. And it was packed. And I knew we were in for a good time because they were off to a late start. I think they were hosting a wedding. But, it just felt like we had 7 o'clock reservations. It didn't open until 7 o'clock. We got there. Everybody with a 7 o'clock reservation was being told to wait in the lobby because they're getting a late start. And sometimes maybe I'd find that annoying, but it kind of just made me feel like, ooh, this is going to be a good place. You know what I mean? It just kind of had that feel of, if you have to wait an extra 10 to 15 minutes so they get everything right and have everything the way they want it, you're in for a good time. And we were. That was one of the most enjoyable meal experiences I've ever had. I think everybody that was at the table that night, my wife, my mom, my mother-in-law, would all agree. So we did that on Saturday night. Then Sunday we went to the Empire State Building. It's a lot different than what I remember when my wife and I went in 2008. There was a little bit of a museum component then, but now there's a lot of stuff you walk through. We took a hilarious picture. You always think of King Kong when you think of the Empire State Building. And they actually have now, with some AI, some CGI, they've got a gigantic King Kong paw that's made like a not paper mache, but you know what I mean. And you go stand there, and then they've got the animated King Kong looking through a window behind him that you take pictures on. We got a hilarious picture of my mom and my mother-in-law, Pam, in the grasp of King Kong. And then we just did the whole deal. You get up there. It doesn't take that long. Get up to the 86th floor. There was an option to go to the 103rd floor to the observatory up there. We just did the standard 86th floor. You walk all the way around. They had different Christmas stuff up there that you could take pictures with, but you see pretty much everything in New York City from the Empire State Building. That was my second time there. And then we did the Packer game. We got some pizza. We went to Little Italy Pizza, which again has some spots around New York. Excellent pizza. You really can't go wrong. I mean, there's so many New York pizza spots that you could go to, and they're all really good. The garlic knots at the Little Italy pizza place we went to, holy cow. I mean, just buttery and garlicky on the outside, crisp on the outside, as soft as a Joe Barry defense on the inside. I think I actually like the garlic knots better than I like the pizza, but the pizza was great too. Crisp undercarriage, foldable. Just a really good slice of pizza. We got a couple of slices of pizza and some garlic knots. Then we did the whole Packer game thing, which we talked about yesterday. Went to the West Village and did the whole Kettle of Fish experience. And then we went to the Lion King. That's what we had to abandon ship at Kettle of Fish for, to go to the Lion King, go see a Broadway show. As I said yesterday, I went to Broadway in 2005 or 6 and saw The Color Purple. So my second time, but a long time removed. And everybody else's first time. It is cliche probably to go see the Lion King. It was unbelievable. The practical effects. I'm not a huge musical guy. I'm not a huge theater guy. I have an appreciation for it, but is it on my short list of things? Like if I had $500 to go do something, to go to a game, to go to whatever, an amusement, I don't know that I would pick musical or anything theater related. I'd go to a concert. I'd go to a game. But the coolest thing about musicals and high-end stuff like that, where you're on Broadway, this is the top of the top, the practical effects that you see, where you're not doing CGI stuff and animated stuff, AI stuff, or whatever. The practical effects, like the giraffes they have, where you've got somebody walking on stilts, then they have hand stilts they're also using with the head coming over the top. Just some of that stuff was amazing to see, the way they put that thing together. And there are extra songs. There are like 3 or 4 songs that are not in the movie that are on the Broadway show. Everybody was amazing. The actor that portrayed Scar, to me, stole the show, as typically the villain does, right? I think when you go to a show like that, a musical or a theatrical performance, it almost always feels like the villain is the most compelling character. Anytime he was on stage, he was electric, and it was a great show. I would say this about The Lion King, and I kind of teased this yesterday when I was saying I didn't want to be the guy checking the Packers score with my phone lighting up. I didn't want to be distraction guy. When you go to The Lion King, I guess you have to know, because it's The Lion King, there are going to be a lot of kids at The Lion King, and it is a 2.5-hour show. And as you may or may not know about kids, their attention spans, I wouldn't say fit into a 2.5-hour window. More 45 minutes to an hour. And they all had a good time, but you're going to have kids talking, you're going to have kids kicking the back of your seat, which my wife had. You wish the parents would maybe take control of that situation, but not the case. And you had people losing stuff, so they'd hit a flashlight on their phone trying to find stuff for their kids. So that is something we realized very quickly, that, The Lion King is sort of more of a kid's musical. I don't know that you'd run into that if you went to, like, The Color Purple or whatever, all the other musicals we thought about going to. I don't know how many kids would be there at 7 o'clock on a Sunday night. But that was the case, The Lion King. So that's something you kind of have to know going into it. But a once-in-a-lifetime experience, once-in-a-lifetime show to see that on Broadway, that was an excellent experience all the way around. And then, the Costco car picked us up on Monday morning, bright and early at 4:37 in the morning, whisked us back to LaGuardia, sat there for a couple of hours, everything on time with the flight coming back. But overall, the experience was awesome. We did so much stuff. My mom was sitting at the airport trying to write down and remember, and I couldn't even remember all the stuff we did. We're doing 4 or 5 things a day trying to pack it all in. I mean, there's a few things that we didn't hit. There's obviously, like the Guggenheim. There's a lot, There's a lot of stuff that you could do that we didn't quite get to. Ed Sullivan Theater and pieces of history. But I think for the most part, for a once-in-a-lifetime trip, Empire State Building, Statue of Liberty, Ground Zero, Macy's, Times Square, Saks, the Rockefeller Tree, get on the Today Show. We did pretty much everything, and the food was absolutely incredible the entire time we're there. Cannot recommend New York City, especially Christmas in New York City enough. You just have to know, like I said, you've just got to know going into it, you're going to run into people. It's not a rude thing. It's not like they're trying to make some kind of statement. It's just that there's so many people going in 18,000 different directions, looking around, trying to take pictures. You just have to accept that mentally going in, and once you do, it's fine. But we had an incredible time, one of my favorite trips that we've taken in a long, long time, taking the moms to New York City. So I don't know where we're going next. I think we're doing spring training again, just a calmer trip in March. But that is the travel log episode of Christmas in New York City. So we will be back with you Friday morning, and we'll load it up for Packers-Broncos this weekend. Huge matchup, one of the biggest matchups, you'd say maybe the marquee matchup of the NFL slate. And as we went over yesterday, it is a good slate of games. We're going to get ready for that. First, injury reports are out this afternoon. Badger basketball on the floor tonight at number 23, Nebraska. Even though they're not ranked right now, and even though they got their break speed off at BYU, I think this Badger team's pretty damn good. I think they're really good, actually. I think they're going to be top 20, top 15 by the end of the year. I think they're going to be a 3 or a 4 seed in the tournament, and I think they can make a run. So they are at number 23, Nebraska tonight. Now watch, they'll lose by 30. And then the Bucks are on the floor tomorrow. Still more Giannis rumors are getting churned up, but we'll see heading into tomorrow night after 4 days off if the Bucks can kind of get things together a little bit without Giannis out with injury. With the Celtics at Fiserv Forum tomorrow, we'll recap that on Friday as well. Have a happy, safe rest of your work week. We'll chat with you then.